about this topic. So probably a lot of the people on this call and in our orbit of First 30 don't realize, but I did a lot of employee research. I know it's not the same as what we're talking about today, but I did some of the things like the scans that you do of reviews and comments online. So I have done a bit of this type of work in the past. And when I met Matt, and I'm going to do a little preamble, but then I'm going to turn things over to Matt. I met Matt, and I saw his presentation. It was just fantastic. And I knew I had to have him in. I always get these questions. Yes, we are recording this session. And Kamara, I know you're here in the chat as well. So please, if people ask, just throw in the comments again, because we always get asked multiple times, are you recording? Yes, we're recording. And Kamara and I will be in the chat also to share some links, answer questions, or save the questions for Matt. And Matt, if you want to wait, we can wait. But I know you said you'll be happy to answer. Adhering. So very exciting news. First 30 actually turned 5 years old this month. And I know some of you, yay! I was so excited. It kind of took me by surprise when I saw the update on LinkedIn. Oh, thanks for the hearts. I always forget you can do that on here. So I really just want to thank everyone who's worked with us. You are what makes the businesses like First 30 grow. We had people take a chance on us in the early days, and we're so grateful. I'm not going to go through this in too much detail, but our services have been expanding. So we still offer a great outplacement support. We do run corporate training. We do stay interview training, managing difficult conversations training. We do talk to organizations about recognition that works and doesn't, and creating praise culture. We also do employee onboarding, and we're going to start doing our free onboarding audits again. So you'll be getting some notes about that. So if you're thinking about refreshing or revamping your onboarding program, we've added some services to that so that we actually help you build your programs, which I'm super excited about. I have the pricing in here. You guys always have access to our pricing. We have a great success rate with our participants in our outplacement too. I always like to bring that up. And we now offer what I call retention interventions, where we go in and we add more qualitative information to all the great quantitative information people like Matt get organizations and run little focus groups with your employees. So and here are some of the clients that we've been working with over the last 5 years. This is just a collection of them. It feels so good to look at this slide, especially after 5 years. And then I get this a lot. I got it this morning, just threw it in here. Amy, I've been meaning to reach out to you for a while. Don't wait. Even if you're not ready to work with us, you're always welcome to reach out and book some time with me. I'll send you something after and just chat about what we're doing. And again, with outplacements, always good to get ahead of that because it can take you by surprise. So a lot of crazy things and fun things happen in Vegas. And so one of which happened to me in this past year, which was meeting our speaker today, Matt Vance. It wasn't anything crazy, but he did give a very good presentation at the conference. We were at Epic. We were actually both presenters, and I just popped into one of the sessions, and it happened to be Matt's, and it was like fate. And then I read his book. Actually just read it over the weekend, Matt, and it was amazing, and I'm sure you're going to talk about it. It's called The Review Cycle. Kamara is going to put a link to that as well. So Matt, welcome to you. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I'm going to let you start speaking so that we can get on with the program today. And I will also go, thanks for all the congratulations, everyone, as well. So Matt, on to you. Great. I was like, oh my gosh, are you guys, we didn't even test this and it worked. I know, it's amazing. So welcome to the First 30 community. We're really happy to have you here.
Well, thank you, Amy. And I have to say, it was definitely fun to meet you in Vegas at the Epic HR conference. And for those of you who are watching and participating, Amy actually joined my wife and I on our podcast. We have a podcast called The Culture Prophet. Tune into episode 31. We should have filmed episode 30 with you, it would have been that much more aligned to first 30, yes, 1 and 30, 31, episode 31. It's a great episode, and we talked a lot about onboarding and offboarding and some other really fun things. So that's a fun one for you to tune into. But yeah, excited to be here with you and talk about all things employee reviews. And I'm very happy to answer questions as we go. So feel free to put those in the chat. And Amy, you can even just stop me if there's one that we
You know
want to.
what? And I'm probably going to stop you because as I was reading your book, which is so thorough, right? Like it really explains not only what to do, but why you kind of respond to reviews, how you interpret reviews. There's just so much information in there. And I actually have some questions. So I hope you don't mind if I also jump in from time to time.
Yeah, 100%. And the book, so to give a little background, I started in the world of feedback management in 2014, but I was on the customer side and I got hired at this startup, a manufacturing startup making pillows and mattresses and all this kind of stuff. And at the time, I'd been married a couple years. Krista and I were expecting our first child, and I was not getting any jobs. I needed Amy's services to help me find a job. That's how bad it was. Eventually, I was able to get this job, and it felt like either my last chance or my destiny. And the position that they wanted me to do was figure out reviews. It was a very out of the box position. They said, we want you to be the review guy. Um, at the time, they had about 100 product listings on Amazon. And over the next few years, I grew into this role of managing a team over thousands of product listings across over 50 different e-commerce sites, Amazon, Overstock, Walmart, Wayfair, tons of different platforms. And a few years into this, there was a pretty significant ruling from Amazon, or a new policy that incentivized reviews were banned. Before that, you could just give away a product for free in exchange for a review, and it was like printing money. It was just priming that product listing, and then you would sell. Once that happens, like half of my job was no longer legal, and we had to stop a lot of that kind of stuff, and everything started to change. So that's when my
You
wife.
know what? I felt, sorry to interrupt you, Matt, but I felt the tension when you were writing about that. Obviously, as someone who works in the layoff space, and I've spoken over the years to so many people in that position, and things did not work out the way they worked out for you. So when I read that, it was like the hero's journey through finding out that your job is no longer relevant or is at huge risk to the amazing turnaround that you had.
Well, thank you. Yeah, and it was definitely one of those crisis moments. I have to apologize. You guys are getting a little bit of off script background here, but I think it's kind of fun for this environment. So, long story short, that moment was the catalyst for my wife inviting me or prompting me to write a book. And that was because I really like research, I really like teaching people. She told me, well, you're already kind of writing all these trainings for your team. Why don't you make this more robust? And that was because I looked around and there weren't any conferences, there weren't any books about how to manage reviews, regardless of if it's a customer review or an employee review. So it was about a 4.5 year period where I was researching and writing this book, The Review Cycle. In that time period, I also started experimenting with employee reviews and using some of the strategies that we were uncovering from firsthand research on the customer side. And we found that managing customer feedback found in customer reviews is very similar to managing employee feedback found in employee reviews. Both are public feedback loops. Everybody can see that feedback that's there. And so it can really inform a lot of decisions and strategies. So today we're going to be talking about why you should ask for employee reviews, how to get more employee reviews in an authentic and genuine way. And then I've got a 6-step checklist for you that you can just implement right into your company. And then this is a component of the book, of the methodology. So you can see this model right here. This is the book. The name of the model is the namesake of the book. there are 4 steps to the review cycle. So instead of talking about the decision-making process like a sales funnel, that it's you come in the top and there's fewer and fewer and fewer people that make it all the way to the bottom to that ultimate purchase decision. This model represents or reflects that our decisions are reoccurring. We make purchase decisions all the time, whether we're buying a vacuum or we're shopping for a job. And every time an individual goes through this decision-making process, referencing online reviews and other user-generated content, it's affecting the landscape of user-generated content, the reviews, the social media posts, the videos on YouTube. All that is continuously fluctuating and affecting conversion rates. Because if we've got low star ratings, we've got lower sales. If we've got higher star ratings, we've got higher sales. And that's the same like application. So a listing, a profile on Glassdoor, a sale is someone applying to that job. On Amazon, a product, a sale is someone adding that to cart. It's basically the same thing. Your company culture on Glassdoor, the bullet points of why you should work here, that's the same as the bullet points describing a product on Amazon. You can pretty much swap those two out, and it's a very similar scenario for optimizing and managing your employer reputation and employer brand. So we're
And I also wanted to say, if you don't mind, that when we're thinking of the psychology of people who are looking for work, because of course we're on the other side of it too, the onboarding side, and we see a lot of turnover in the first 6 months of someone's employment, right? And especially with top talent, they have so many options. So when they're looking at reviews, that's going, whether even if they walk in the door, those reviews are in the back of their head, and they might get more job offers in those first few weeks because they've just been out in the market. Now they're in your workplace. Even those little things are in their head, and if they see validation of that, justified or not, if they see validation and they start to get scared off, those other job offers that might come through in the next few weeks or few months can look a lot more appealing. Because I've talked in the past a lot about imprinting and the cognitive experience we have when we first engage with new anything, including a new job or a new employer. And that can just sit in the back of your consciousness and kind of percolate when things are validated. So that is another reason I believe, and I wanted you here, because I do believe these employee reviews are critical to businesses and attracting employees in general, but particularly attracting or retaining top talent.
100% agree with you, Amy. You wear your culture on your sleeves. Those ratings and reviews, they do not see your engagement survey results. They do not see your eNPS. And so those things are very much secondary to what is visible and public online. So let's get into some of these principles about why you should ask for employee reviews. We talk to a lot of companies. So our business, Mobrium, we help with employer reputation. And similar to Amy, we do an audit to help provide a starting point for businesses. And as we do these calls and examine a company's starting position where they're at, oftentimes we get asked, wait, I can ask for employee reviews? Like, that's okay? And it can be uncomfortable, but just like a company selling a product or providing a service is entitled to and has the right to ask for feedback in the form of a review, an employer can also do that from employees 100%. So
what are some of the triggers for employers contacting you?
Typically, it's a company that feels their company culture is underrated. So they've got really low ratings and reviews, and most of the time, it's just an overrepresentation of negative feedback, which is one of the points we'll cover here. It's not as likely or not as frequent as you think for a company to be truly horrible. Most of the time, it's a problem of not purposefully managing your representation online and the feedback that's there. And so that's the number one. Sometimes we have companies who they have a great culture, they actually have good reviews, but they want to go to the next level and be more purposeful. They want greater anonymity, greater trust in their feedback program, and they want to qualify for more Best Place to Work awards, which is a byproduct of managing your reputation proactively. So great question, Amy.
Thank you.
As you can see, I won't read all of these, but employee reviews have a direct correlation with profitability, with purchases, and there's a spillover effects to sales as well, because employee reviews can be an extension of the service that your company provides. So why is it that employee reviews are so powerful in shaping perceptions, shaping behaviors? As Amy said, that top talents individual may decide to not pursue your job offer if they feel the ratings and reviews aren't great. And it comes down to this phrase: perception is reality. When I speak with individuals in person, a lot of the times on this slide, I like to ask, who thinks it's too hot in here, or who thinks it's too cold in here? We can go over to the thermostat and we can see it says 70 or 72 or whatever. There's an objective number over there. So who's right or wrong saying it's too hot or too cold or just right? There is no right answer for that question because it is a perception question. So if we're measuring perception, it's just about understanding feelings and then measuring where those feelings are. This guy, Lee Atwater, was the campaign manager for George W. Bush. He was the US president years ago, and he fundamentally changed the way that presidential campaigns were run in the US. Instead of taking a side on a social issue that was being debated by actual research facts, they would go out and measure the perceptions of the population. And they would take the side that was already believed the most, even if it might be the harder side to argue based on actual facts. And that approach actually helped them win the election. So principle number one of why reviews impact ROI, they're just too directly connected to your profitability and success metrics. They demand your attention. Number two, I'm going to try to go through these a little bit faster than I normally do, just because I think Q&A is going to be really important today. But here's a quote from a review that I researched for a company. I was working at this business that was looking to acquire this 40 chain retail company, and I came across this review. I saw myself growing with company name removed, but I would rather chop off a finger than work for a bunch of corporate snakes that cannot sufficiently run a business. I mean, wow, that's a punch in the face review. We ended up negotiating the acquisition of this business at a discount. Essentially, we found that their employer reputation and their company culture was a fixer-upper, and that helped us get some leverage in the acquisition. After the acquisition, I was tasked with working with the executive team and launching their first company culture survey and starting some initiatives to improve. And what I found when I went to meet them in person at their office was really surprising. I didn't know what to expect. Like, were people going to be mad and upset? I mean, this was a 2.6 star company culture on Glassdoor. Was I going to shake someone's hand that was missing a finger? Like, I didn't know what was going to happen. But when I got there, everyone was nice, and you could say, well, maybe they were just putting on a facade to impress the new guy because the acquisition was happening. But then when we administered their first company culture survey, their score came out to about a 4-star equivalent when they were at a 2.6 star on Glassdoor. So why was there such a big discrepancy? Their internal metrics were saying 4-star. On Glassdoor, they were saying 2.6. And yeah, it's a horrible situation, but it comes back to this principle of the law of self-selecting extremes. So when you don't ask for feedback, you get the polarized extremes of the spectrum. The people that had a way positive or way negative experience are willing to go out of their way to share that feedback. But as you proactively ask for feedback, you lower the barrier to participate and you unlock this silent majority. And over the next 10 months, we started proactively asking for reviews at this business. And sure enough, it got all the way to 4 stars to be reflective of the internal company culture metrics. So really, they just had a representation issue. They were sitting at about a 1% representation on Glassdoor over a 10-year period, and that's how they got to 2.6. And their engagement survey, they had about a 65% participation, coming out at a 4-star. And as we increased the participation, we got more reviews. That percentage increased and represented the true reflection of the culture. So
Matt, can we just go back to that slide just for 1 second? Because I think this is a really important point that you're making here. And I saw this in my research days as well. So if you're someone who is in HR, which most of us are on this call today, and you in your business is, you leadership will sometimes notice when there is a very bad review on Glassdoor. Indeed, it's like a red, is like red alert goes on in the office, right, when that happens. And it's like often it will come through to HR, right? So how do we explain that? And the slides that Matt just presented are excellent for explaining that, and we're going to share the replay so you can go fast forward to this slide. But if you're seeing it's because you're going to get predominantly polarizing reviews if you don't go through this process that Matt is talking about, meaning only the super happy and engaged people are going to give them, and that's a smaller amount, and more so the people who have had, for whatever reason, it might not be the fault of the company, a very bad experience in their mind, are going to put that up, and they are probably in a position where they're unafraid to do that for whatever reason. So it doesn't have to be a red alert. It can be very easily explained by someone talking about these polarizing reviews that we get, and then you'll have a solution because you have access to this information that Matt is sharing today, and you have access to Matt.
Yep, that's totally true. And another thing is we don't need to be afraid of those negative reviews. As we respond strategically to them, we can actually increase application intent. A negative review with a strategic reply can drive additional applications. And we don't want to get to a perfect 5-star. Like you look at the cover of my book, you can see that 4.5-star image right there. That's where you're optimized. 4.5 stars. That amount of negativity provides authenticity and trustworthiness to the positives. And if you get too close to 5, it actually decreases your sales, decreases your application rates, which is not desirable. So principle 2, we need to ask for reviews to increase our ratings. And then this next principle, we've got to realize that our employee reviews are not just affecting job seekers. Current employees are looking at that to decide if they want to go work somewhere else. They're making a comparison against you to that other possible job. Investors, I mean, I was representing an investor and I was using these employee reviews for research. And the community and customers can look at your employee reviews to make purchase decisions as well. So there are many stakeholder groups, and we're looking to impress and influence all of them by optimizing our feedback found in employee reviews. So recap, employee reviews are really important. They affect ROI. Asking is the #1 way to increase our ratings. And number 3, we affect lots of different stakeholder groups by asking for reviews. Now I'm going to tell you some strategies on how to ask for employee reviews specifically. This is what it looks like when you don't ask for employee reviews. You probably have this little trickle of volume coming in. Maybe you're starting around a 3-star, and then you've got a little bit of star rating atrophy happening as that law of self-selecting extremes sets in across time. Then maybe your leadership team is like, just like Amy said, that horrible review, we need to take care of this. You better go blast the whole company with an email and get a whole bunch of reviews. Well, this is what that does. You have a review event that occurs, this huge spike in volume because you just sent out a company-wide email, and that can directly increase your ratings. Maybe you go from a 3-star all the way up to a 4-star, and then you start to see some atrophy again. You can actually inadvertently request what we call revenge reviews from this approach. That's where someone leaves an all caps 1-star review. They don't care about us. They're just trying to make their reviews look better. So don't listen to any of these positive reviews. That's just because this wasn't illegal, but it's just not a good practice to try to get a lot of reviews all at the same time. It can feel on the receiving side inauthentic and self-serving. What we want is a more continuous flow of reviews. Now,
and what I love for the people who have access to this information, which you're sharing right now, is that it will you will be able to mitigate risk for your business. And we always say at First 30, like, we want to help our HR partners look like heroes in their organization. And I do think that this helps make you look like a hero, because if you presented this type of chart and said, hey, this is the risk. Like I think first of all, a lot of companies wouldn't even think to ask for reviews, number one, from current employees. And number two, if they do it, they don't know how to do it
Mhm.
effectively. And you would think just your instinct, like I would say that people would just think, oh, it makes sense to just ask everyone at one time for these reviews and not thinking about the consequences. Now you've come to your employer with this understanding of polarizing reviews. You've also come to them with a strategy that makes sense, and you've also shown them that there's risk to doing it another way, which it reinforces that you have some a really strong knowledge in this space.
Thank you for that, Amy. And yes, you are the hero in HR. And as you're responding to that executive that says, just go get a whole bunch of reviews all at once, another risk here is it can actually throw a moderation flag for sites like Glassdoor, where they could view this as review manipulation. Now, it's allowable to do this, but it's not the best way to do it. It can inadvertently sometimes disqualify you from Best Place to Work award eligibility. So maybe instead of this, you say, how about we do monthly requests and we just take little batches of the employees? Well, that's a little better. You know, you've got these a little bit more smoothed out requests, and you see that the ratings and reviews are climbing up at a more consistent base, which is what we want. But you can still see a little bit of atrophy from some revenge reviews because this is still a decent amount of batching. So then you say, okay, let's do weekly requests. Things start to smooth out. This is actually pretty good if you're going to do a program like this manually in-house. And then at Mobrium, we space this out daily using automated software. So you're not having to manage it, and it smooths out that increase across time in the most sustainable way. Another thing to note is star ratings on Glassdoor, as an example, are calculated algorithmically, and they weight recent reviews more than older reviews. So in that case of doing the huge review events, those reviews are brand new, but then they start to age out and not affect your star rating as much. So even a small batch of negatives here at week 21 could dramatically tank and overrepresent a decrease in your star rating. So the strongest way to have insulation and stability to your star rating is to have a consistent flow of reviews across time. Here's one example from one of our users, which we were able to get them up and then keep them up. And then, so principle number one, we want a drip system. We want to space out those review requests in more frequent, smaller batches. Number
Matt, we
two,
have some questions coming in. So I'm just wondering, do you want to wait until we can wait until the end and we can answer them all at one time?
no, if it's relevant about this one, then yeah, let's see. Is it from
The first one is all about if employees do internal employee experience surveys as well. I hear this a lot from organizations and our clients. How do we avoid survey fatigue if we want to actively solicit these reviews?
So my best practice recommendation for an employee feedback program, you've got a combination of different mechanisms. You've got your once a year annual employee engagement survey that's drawing like your long-term trend line of how the business is doing. Then you want to do these reoccurring review requests on an ongoing basis. So at Mobrium, we actually space this out across 4 of the top employer review sites, and we do batching. So we'll do Glassdoor and Indeed on one request, and comparably an InterSite on a second request. So we end up doing 2 requests per year for employee reviews. And then the third piece is an always on anonymous suggestion box. So if you got the combination of these 3 pillars, you've got your once a year engagement survey, your twice a year employee review requests, and your always on suggestion box, you've got a way for employees to share feedback in the moment. They're having it anytime, anonymously, confidential. It's safe through your anonymized suggestion box. You're taking care of your showcased piece, showcasing your culture externally to the public with your employee reviews. And then your engagement survey provides your really robust analysis, your demographic associations for different experience drivers. And the combination of those 3, I think that's the best practice. That's what you should strive
Sure.
for.
And we can wait for the next questions so we can leave them till the end. It's totally
Okay.
fine.
Yeah, perfect. So that was number two. The next one, a lot of people feel like managing a lot of sites is overwhelming. There's so many different things to consider for these different top sites. And I know in Canada, we also have ratemyemployer.ca, which is another big one. And so we see companies that make this mistake where they focus on only one or two and they inadvertently introduce a new problem called reputation disparity. And you may say, well, what is that? This is reputation disparity. It's where you look really good on one platform, you look crappy on another one, and a job seeker, an employee, a customer, they see both of those side by side and they're scratching their head going, isn't this the same company? Why are they so good over here and not good over here? Well, this must be faked or manipulated or too good to be true. This over here must be the unbiased, unfiltered, uncensored voice of the employee. So it reinforces trust in your negative ratings and completely erodes trust in your positive ratings. So it's really important that we diversify our reputation across multiple different platforms, just like we diversify our financial investments in a 401k. There's strength in diversification. So that's principle number two, diversify your requests. And if people want, I can make the slides available just so it's easier to review this after. Um, Principle number three, we want to include everyone. You can send review requests to full-time employees, part-time, interns, freelancers, contractors, anyone that speaks any language, they can submit a review on these different platforms. And we want to do that because it increases the total possible reviews we can get, and everyone's voice matters. Number four, ask on repeat. So this is a really important one. Customer reviews, you can only leave one review ever. You buy something on Amazon, you go to a restaurant, one review. Employees submitting reviews on these platforms, they can leave a review once per year. So if you've got 1,000 employees, now 100% participation looks like 1,000 reviews every single year. A lot of companies we talk to, they add a review request to their onboarding flow because it's really simple to track. And they didn't know that you can ask for reviews again and again. And so they're just trying to capitalize on the excitement of those new hires. That is good, but a better thing is to track who we've asked when, so we know when we can ask them again in the future to maximize the number of reviews we can collect. And if we look at those Best Place to Work awards, they only look at the most recent 12 months. So it's really important we get a continuous flow of reviews. I've just got a few more here I'll blitz through. We want to make it really easy, so we want to link directly to the form, just so people aren't having to go search your company and then find the button to leave a review. So make it really easy for them. Give employees time on the clock to share so they feel empowered to do that, and that's going to increase participation as well. This next one is all about appealing to intrinsic motives to share. And in my book, I talk about review DNA. Everyone that writes a review has some intrinsic motives. And from the research that I put together, we've got givers and takers, people who are writing a review because they want to receive something, and other people are trying to give back. The number one reason people write reviews is to give back to the community. It's the law of reciprocity. They feel like they've benefited from reviews, and so they want to pay it forward to the community. So write that template.
I found this so interesting, but the givers and the takers. And then you had, am I going to ruin it if I say the funny thing that from your book that you found as well? Is that like some people, someone was even looking, some were even looking for a date in the,
There's some French reasons to write a review.
yes.
Yeah, for sure.
That made me laugh. Really, that's really connecting with your community, I guess.
On a much deeper level, for sure. And
Just shows you how hard the dating world is. Like,
yeah,
yeah.
seriously, you're gonna write a review to get your next date. I mean, watch out, what's coming next?
Yeah.
Request your date? Like, I don't even know. It's getting crazy for sure. But you want to appeal to those intrinsic motives and kind of embed a what's in it for me message in your review request template. So for sake of time, I won't read this one because it's there, but you can kind of bake some of that into your review request. And then obviously you're copying and pasting that once you've got it nailed down to save some time. So number six, appeal to motives, which is really important. Number seven, don't break FTC law. I know this doesn't apply to everyone in Canada, but I would say that this new legislation from the Federal Trade Commission does provide some really good best practices on what you should and shouldn't do when it comes to reviews. And it's really rooted in principles of truth in advertising. So we're going to link to this article so you can do a deeper dive on this, but basically it goes through.
Tamara just put it in the chat actually for everyone who wants that. You can go get it there.
Yep. And let me see. So basically, we don't want to create or buy or sell fake reviews, like going to someone on Fiverr and just trying to get them to write a bunch of fake reviews for us. We do not want to incentivize reviews. There is a way to incentivize employee reviews legally, according to FTC law, if there's a disclosure of material connection. So at the very top of the review, you'd have to say, my boss gave me a $10 gift card for writing this review. However, this is a big however, it's strictly against the terms of service on Glassdoor and the different profiles. So if you leave that disclosure, Glassdoor is going to see that it was an incentivized review and they'll take it down, and they might even close your entire profile. So the only way to be legally compliant is leave the disclosure, which could jeopardize your profile. And if you don't leave the disclosure, now it's illegal. So really, there's no way to incentivize reviews, but we shouldn't even need to do that. This is a volume game. As we ask everyone, it's the numbers play in our favor, and we like to get our clients to an 18 to 30% participation to give you a benchmark. On an organic rate, companies that we're evaluating, we typically see between 0.5% and 2%
Wow.
on kind of the typical
About
representation.
not incentivizing reviews, if you're asking your employees for reviews, and I guess it's really this might be getting down to the nitty gritty, but like say you're entered into a draw if you right
That's
like that's an incentive and you cannot do that. So we have to be very careful that it's not like a draw for a new iPad or something that you would win, right?
anything of value, anything
Anything of value. Okay.
winning something of value. And this actually extends just for kind of being proactive. This article that's going to get shared, it also includes a template company policy for online reviews and testimonials. Because there's some nuances here with customer reviews where owners and managers cannot request or demand reviews from team members and immediate family without a disclosure, and they have to track it. And there's a few different things. So the template company policy can help you be more aware of what you should be doing, even if this isn't legally applying to you in Canada. It is a best practice. And guys, I have to say, my dad is from Canada. He's actually from Edmonton, so I am half Canadian. So I'm partially connected.
Yay.
And did recently read the book Into the Abyss about the bush pilot, and four individuals survived out of 10 in this tragic plane crash in Alberta, and it goes through that. So yeah, my heart goes out to everybody in Canada, and we've had two incredible Canadians on our podcast, one of which is Amy, which was a lot of fun. So I'll cruise through these last things. I know I'm kind of rushing, but I'm trying to give you as much meat as
Oh
I
yeah, no, don't rush. I see the questions. We've got 2 questions in the Q&A, and we still have about 10 minutes to go for this part, and then we'll close 15 minutes or so. So don't worry.
can. Okay, so this next one, we're now on the don'ts. This is something you should not do. You do not want to cherry pick or essentially try to find the happy people in your company and just ask them for reviews. This is also, it's not illegal, but it's not a best practice, because this is how it's going to go down. Let's say you've got 1,000 employees, you're asking the people that you think are happy for reviews. Some of them are really good at putting on a smiley face and they're actually not. That's one scenario that could happen, but eventually you're going to tap out. You're going to use all the happy people, and then you're going to be like, well, I don't know who to ask now. And everybody who hasn't been asked, they're going to start hearing that this is going on, because employees talk to each other, and they're going to start to feel weird about this. Like, Well, do they think I'm not a good employee? Am I not good enough? And so you're starting to introduce some negative drivers in your culture. The better thing to do is ask everyone, always. The message to your workforce is everyone's opinion matters. We want to hear from everyone. We're going to ask for reviews on an ongoing systematic basis. So don't expect a request at the same time as your coworker, but know that everyone's included. That's the way to do it. And then the very last principle here, don't compromise anonymity. I can't stress this one enough. It's very tempting. You see that horrific negative Glassdoor review come through, and you're like, I'm pretty sure it was this person. Well, you go confront that individual, and you're right. Well, now you've compromised anonymity of the platform of reviews, and you've created this. You've put fuel on the fire to create this bigger issue, and now it's going to lead to likely someone leaving or that person spreading more poison in the company. If you guess wrong, that could be even worse. You go up to so and so and you're like, oh, did you write this review? What review? Well, now that person that was engaged and happy, they think you're big brother and you're this heavy handed employee that doesn't actually care genuinely about people. You just care about your perception and that's it. And it feels really surface level. And now you've taken someone that's engaged to potentially being disengaged. It doesn't matter if you know who wrote which review. You need to respond to it strategically regardless, and we've got a separate training for that. But yes, there is a way to respond to every single review, and we do not need to know who wrote it to accomplish that need. So here's a recap on the do's and don'ts. You do want a drip system to space out requests. You want to diversify across the top platforms. You want to include everyone. Always ask on repeat, make it easy, and appeal to motives. On the don'ts, don't break FTC law, don't cherry pick, and don't compromise anonymity. So now we'll wrap up with our 6 steps to launching a review request program at your company. The first step is to do an initial reputation audit. If you're starting this new initiative or you've been asking for reviews, either way, it's really important to draw the line in the sand where you're starting from. So go take a screenshot of all of your top profiles with the timestamp of the number of reviews and the star rating. And that's documentation both for yourself, for your boss, to show this is where you started from. And this is something that we do as a free service at Mobrium, and we go a little bit further in depth to give you a few more stats that can also be helpful.
And I want to say one thing about this, because it's really important. And by the way, what I love about your whole system, Matt, is it's quite simple. I know you're talking about 6 steps, and sometimes I see 6 steps from suppliers, and it's like, wow, that's really hard and complicated. This is not hard and complicated. Some of the steps you can do on your own in 5 minutes, like this one. But if you are going to change things, and actually we ran it, and if any of you didn't get a copy of it and you want it, we did this great session on HR resumes, which Camara ran recently. And one of the things we talked about was having metrics that you can share on your resume. And forget about the resume, like that's one way you can use this information. But if you are going to go ahead and work with someone like Matt, or you're going to do this on your own, what you want to do is you want to have a benchmark so that when things improve, you can say, hey, look, we've invested resource and we've hired Mobrium to do this, or whatever you decide to do. Now we are seeing actual gains. If you don't have this screenshot, you could miss the opportunity to show just how much. We talk about this with our onboarding clients too. Like, survey your employees before you make the improvements to your onboarding program, so you can benchmark and you can go back and say, oh, we were only rated, like a 5 out of 10 before, and now we're an 8 or a 9 or 9.5 or 4.5 out of 5 or whatever it is. Now we've improved. So this is a really important step in the process.
I definitely agree with that, Amy. And you're always the hero when you can measure the before and after, because you can own that improvement. And yes, 100%. So the next thing you're going to do is assign ownership. You've got to have a conversation internally to say who's going to manage the employee reviews. Most often we see it lives either within HR or marketing or some type of a collaboration. The best case scenario is both of those two groups are working together in some capacity, and evaluate all the different stakeholder groups that are being affected by these employee reviews as you make that decision of who should be involved. Number three is create a review request tracking sheet. So this can be really simple, just a basic spreadsheet with the different profiles that you're focusing on, and then your employees' names over here, and you're just listing the dates of when you asked which employee for which review on the various sites. And then the next year, you can ask them a little bit after that date. So I'd recommend just a little bit after 12 months is when you can start going through again. And then stage
This
four,
was actually a question about asking how about asking candidates and new hires to provide reviews. And I love this is from Marcia, and I love this question because this you must have a lot of confidence in your candidate process, which is amazing. And I would respond on the new hires, and I'm going to let the expert take it over. But on new hires, and Matt, you tell me if this is wrong, but I feel like most new hires go through a bit of a honeymoon period. So it's a good time to get them because they'll probably say something really good. But
yes,
what
that
about you?
there. So I've evaluated a lot of research with employee engagement, and the number one demographic for tenure of highest engagement is 0 to 1 years. So you're right on that first year. That's when you're most likely to have the highest engagement, highest excitement around the employment experience. And then it starts to dip. 3 to 5 is the lowest, and then the second highest is that 15 plus year group. But really, we shouldn't try to roll out some uh, program that's capitalizing on something. Like the way we do it at Mobrium is everyone's name is in the pot and everyone gets selected randomly, and we have an algorithm to help us do that on repeat so that we're never missing anyone. We're always spacing them out appropriately. If you are doing this manually, though, yeah, put it in part of your onboarding flow, and then that's your first year request, and then they go into the repeat every year type thing. So that's totally good if you're doing this manually. Another thing that I would say here with this is this document is really something that we want to keep confidential. We don't want people who shouldn't see this document having access because they may be very tempted to try to deduce who wrote which review, and that has negative implications that we want to avoid. The next one is write your template. So you're saving yourself some time, and talk to your copywriter, like nail this template, make sure you feel really good about it. You can incorporate some company values or some language in there that reflects your brand voice. And then that's going to be a copy paste scenario to save you some time. And then you want to make sure you're scheduling a recurring task for yourself to actually do this so you don't drop. Because just like we looked at the flow of reviews, the volume of reviews coming in across time, if you're doing this consistently for 3 months and then you just completely forget and then you go a while and then you start picking it back up, well, you've left a gap where that's going to have some weakness. You're introducing some volatility into your star rating over that period of time. So it's important for you to be consistent and ask for reviews on the cadence that you can commit to. And then number 6 is just that ongoing commitment to monitoring your profiles to respond to reviews. As you respond to reviews, you're showcasing that you're listening, you're showcasing the amount of care that you have for your team, and that in turn helps fuel greater participation on the asking side. So that's the last step. And then as a recap, here's the 6 things. Start with a reputation audit, assign ownership, create a request tracking sheet, create your review request templates, set reminders for yourself, and monitor the profiles on repeat. So that is everything. So we can, any other Q&As that we
We
should hit?
had a very similar question to the question that we had already asked about asking candidates for reviews. And I'm in a really funny situation right now. where I can't seem to come back to the, oh, there. I, I was looking at the slides that I needed to put up and I was having a little trouble getting back to Zoom. No, we have that, but I just wanted to be, we answered the two questions. They were very similar actually. So that's great. I do want to ask Matt though, I want to be really clear the services that Mobrium provides. So everyone knows like you can DIY some of this for sure. But what Mobrium does, as I understand it, is that you have a technology that basically does this, that you'll manage. So it's like you take all of the administration and hard work and but you'll have all the templates and you'll make sure employees are reached out to. So I just want to be really clear on what you provide to people as well, what you provide to your clients.
Yeah, thank you, Amy. Yes, we do automate a good portion of everything related to managing your employee reviews. The biggest time sink is those review requests. And a really critical piece is when you're doing this in-house, you will never be able to overcome the conflict of interest. You're sending that review request to an employee, someone's opening it and they're saying, oh, Amy sent me this request to leave a review on Glassdoor. Well, who else did she send this to? Am I being targeted? Am
Mm-hmm.
I at risk of retaliation or discrimination? Are they going to know that that review is from me when it posts the next day? No, I'm not participating. I'm out. Now, when Mobrium sends that request for your behalf, in your behalf, and anonymity stays in check, trust is still there, and we see the quality and quantity of reviews go up. So that's a really key piece where we are able to act. We're able to do something that you can't actually do for yourself, and we add the suggestion box in the mix too. Mobrium does have a 24/7 anonymous suggestion box where we can link that in your review request and provide employees an option to share publicly on a review site or share internally, anonymously, confidentially.
Oh,
And as,
that's great.
yeah, and as you
Yeah.
in your Mobrium account, you can actually reply back and it stays
Oh,
and anonymous. So now those individuals who had an issue and now they're a voluntary turnover, or they're spreading poison to your coworkers, or they're blasting you online, you've given them that option, 24/7 availability to share, and you can dialogue, you can resolve that issue, and then go back to asking for a review when you close the case. And we incorporate that into our strategy with the review requests as well in that pivotal moment. And it does act as an insulation reputation or a reputation insulator.
insulator. Yeah, that's great. Can I just share my screen now, Matt, if you don't mind? Unless you have another slide. Um, I really appreciate this is why I want to share my slide. So thank you so much, Matt. That was really wonderful, and you validated why I wanted you to come in and talk to us today. Because I have like a million things I'm sure we could all ask you about. I know that in the link in the in the comments, we'll put a link to Matt's calendar as well, so you can book time with Matt. You can book time with me if you want to talk about any of First 30 services as well, as we discussed earlier. And yeah, you know that you can always, of course, reach out to me. And don't forget actually to connect with us on LinkedIn, because Matt, you're always putting up really great content as well on your LinkedIn profile. And I find it can be a really great resource for information. It can just remind you that that we should be focusing on these things just by seeing Matt's face pop up in your feed every so often as well. It's a great way to stay connected, as we all know too. Um, and I think that, oh, whoops, Camara, I was using our side. Camara, you get a thank you too for being you get it for being in the chat. Thanks for helping us. But have a great rest of your day, Matt. Is there any final thoughts you want to leave us with?
Just thank you so much for the opportunity, Amy. Thank you everyone for being here. Great to have a fun conversation today.
Yeah, well, have a really good one, and you'll be getting a note from First 30 after, but you'll also be getting the replay next week as well. So talk to you all soon. Bye.